So the major finding is that these women actually decided how well they were doing along two very different sort of decision trees. The first is what they called making it, and without exception, every woman said, and when I said, how are you doing? They said, I'm making it. And when I said, what does that mean? They said, food on the table, roof over their head. And no matter how many times I tried to push it or twist it or change it, making it was what I got. And again, without exception, that was the first criteria that these women really offered for how well they were doing. And it really consistently was based on those two things, food and shelter for their kids. Interestingly enough, when these women decided how well they were doing, it never involved a comparison to anyone else. So it was an intrapersonal perspective on how well the person felt that they were doing. It got a little more complicated when I started asking about sort of happiness. How do you feel about your life? So you're making it, but what does that mean for you? What do you think about how well you're making it? And then some of the women started talking about different dimensions of satisfaction. And it really sort of blew up at this point because the women sort of started navigating their own personal standards of satisfaction, sort of how well am I doing, how close is the life that I have measure up to the life that I want to have. But then at this level, a social comparison really started to emerge. So how well do other people think I'm doing, and how well do I think I'm doing based on the way that I think other people think that I should be doing? So that's when the voices really started to enter into their heads. And the extent to which the voice entered into their heads really depended in large part on how well they were making it. So the women in the study who were the most vulnerable, sort of the women who lived in a homeless shelter, the women who had sort of zero money, the women who were barely making it, they never even talked about happiness. They never talked about satisfaction, couldn't support them in a 90-minute interview to even consider it. They were making it, and they talked about how they were making it, and the way that they knew that they were making it is because someone else was doing it worse than them. And that's sort of the only hint of satisfaction that I could get, and it was really just in the form of that social comparison. At least I'm not them. I'm good. But making it, how well am I providing, is really the only thing that they could consider. And that actually makes a lot of sense. If it's taking everything that you've got to get out of bed every day, to suddenly stop and look at your life and ask how you feel about it, A, would probably make your life come crashing down, and B, would take a lot of psychic energy that you just don't have.